Doug Melville. Did I say your last name right, man? Please tell me I
Doug
did.
Melville. Doug Melville. I'm not related to Herman Melville. No
Yeah,
Dick royalties.
yeah. I actually searched that up beforehand. I'm joking. Oh, man. It's like, okay, man, you've written this extraordinary book about your grandfather. I mean, about your dad's a part of the book too. Am I right about that though,
Yeah,
man?
yeah. My dad's a part of the book. So it's about Ben Davis Jr. and Ben Davis Sr., the first two black generals in American history who were a father and a son. And Ben Jr. didn't have any biological kids of his own, but raised my dad from the time he was 7 years old. So
Mm.
he raised him as he was his son, although by blood he was his nephew. So that really gave me a great insight talking to my dad. He was there and really understand what these two men did, but also firsthand accounts of how it was to experience this kind of moment in history where one group of individuals was moving the whole United States forward. And in particular, these two men were doing it while being treated in many ways by the establishment as if they were invisible.
Yeah.
Yet they were the ones that were really out there
Mm.
physically putting their lives on the line, but also in the boardrooms and the meetings, really talking about the importance of equality.
And they were two out of 300, what, 85,000, I'm mistaken?
Yeah, yeah. So at the start of World War II, so if you just look at the timeline, just to kind of do a long period of time in a short period, Benjamin O. Davis Sr. became an officer in 1901. The next black officer in the United States of America was his son in 1936. And from 1936 until the start of World War II in the 40s, there were the only two black officers in the entire United States military out of 335,000 soldiers.
And you tell this story like just in an incredible way. You start off with the timeline, not timeline, the family tree and the
Mm-hmm.
timeline, I would say. What did you learn about you in this process, man? Because as I'm reading it, I'm going, some stuff had to jump out
Mm-hmm.
about you, man.
Yeah, I think for me, well, the biggest aha for me really when I learned about the story was when my dad first told me I went to go to a screening of Red Tails, and
Yeah.
when I went to the screening, and Ben Davis Jr. was supposed to be right there on the screen, and he was played by Terrence Howard, but the name was changed. So when I went back to my dad, the biggest learning I had was actually learning the family story. I mean, because
Yeah,
I didn't
man.
know it. And my dad, he just turned 90 last week, and he's really part of the silent generation. He was part of the generation that said, we dealt with this, so you don't have to deal with this. We provided for you, so you don't have to think about it. So it was never in his, heart or DNA. He's a judge, so he's very quiet. Well, but he can gather and understand so much information,
Mm.
but he never shared the story. And when I came back from the movie and I said, hey, Dad, they changed the names, and he said to me two things. If that's not the worst thing that could happen, it's a movie, it doesn't really matter. And the second thing he said was, what are you going to do about it?
Mm.
So when he asked me that, I switched my career to become a diversity officer so I could ensure that other people that are invisible in corporate environments would become visible. So that was the first thing that I learned about myself, is that I would rather do a job or a role that had some type of force for good than just sales jobs or P&L jobs, which, are great and they're satisfying in a different way. But for me, that was important. And then the second thing was learning how my dad came up and learning what these two men went through. And it was such an extraordinary story he was telling me. When I was listening to it, I had to go research it to make sure it was right, because it's like one of those stories where someone tells you and you go, okay, come on,
This can't be right. Yeah.
this can't be right, and it was all the military items too. But even my dad didn't know they were the first two black generals in American history. He knew they were two of the first, but he
Huh.
actually didn't even processed that, they were the first two, until I told him, Dad, and then the only two black officers. And then he was like, oh, I guess you're right, but they don't think about it always like we think about it, because it's a lived experience. So that was a big learning. And then about myself, just patience. I learned a lot of patience, devils in the details, storytelling. I learned a lot of things in this process to help me.
No, man. How you know a book is good for me is when I'm interviewing someone. If I have like written notes, man, in my journal, that's how you know it's good. Now, if it's typed, that's usually standard, man. But if I'm like writing notes in a journal, that's like, man, we have done something here. And so one of the questions I have for you, man, as I was reading the book was like, when did you know? Where were you at when you also had to be an author, man?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
that's no easy that's not easy, man,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
all. So where'd you say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna become an author to tell the story?
Well, that's such a great question, because I was thinking, what medium should this story come out to the world in? And first I just started telling people at dinner parties, like when I was finding out the information, I go, hey,
Yeah,
and then people say, Doug, tell that story that you tell about the first two black generals. Tell that family story. So I would tell it at the parties, and people would say, I think that should be a movie, and this is the next Hidden Figures. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a literary agent, and she said, Doug, I think, a book would probably be the best way. And I said, you're right, because everything really starts off the written word. Scripts are the
yeah.
written word, adaptations of the written word. And I said, you know what? I write, for, blogs and 700,000, 2,000 word pieces, but this would be a stretch for me. But I said, you know what? I mean, let's let it ride and see, because I really wanted to tell the story, because I for me also it's so personal,
Right.
you know, Ben Davis Jr., he got me my first car, a Honda Accord, and my first golf clubs, real wood, woods, because he wanted me to golf because it was so important. And he wanted me to have a car with four doors so I could drive around my friends. And he bought me my first computer because he wanted me to know how to type. And he
Wow.
paid for my college so my parents wouldn't have to think about it. And he was the center of the family, and he was so loving, but he never talked about any of this. He
What's
never.
it like being around him though, Doug? I mean, because I mean, he is a trailblazer. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. Did you know you were around a trailblazer at that time?
No. When I grew
Oh,
up, we would spend every Thanksgiving together. We would go down to Arlington, Virginia, stay over the house and the whole thing. And his house was very feng shui. It was he spent a lot of time in Asia in the service. So it was more of the, Asian themes per se,
yeah.
Eastern cultural themes, and not anything about the military, nothing.
He never even
He had
talked
his,
about it.
no, he didn't talk about it. He would talk about politics and, things of that nature with my dad, but never really anything that he would always say, whatever you want to do, Doug. But you know what he would do? He would give me like leadership tips, but I didn't know that at the time. He'd always say, Doug, it's important to use the system to diffuse the system. When I started getting into
Wow.
college, he started talking to me a little bit more about his theories, you know, um, stay silent, stay quiet, just do the work, loyalty, competency. He would talk so much about performance, and he
Mm.
really wanted me to focus on performance, not just academic, because he said there's always going to be academics, but the thing that changes the world is performance.
But Doug,
And
he here he is hanging out with seven presidents, man.
yeah, yeah.
And did that ever factor into?
No, he never, we would always go to Andrews Air Force Base for Thanksgiving. But in 1998, and senators would always come up to us and everyone would salute him. And I knew that, and they would always be like, well, Doug, Ben was a general, Ben was a pilot, but I didn't really know, really what it entailed. And then in 1998, when he got his fourth star from President Clinton and we all got
Yeah.
invited to the White House, that was when like
It did hit you then.
yeah, no, that was when I said, oh my God, what is going on? Because when they
Yeah.
said we were going to the White House, I don't know if it's a party, it was really even how it was presented, they were going to honor Ben with his fourth star, but I didn't actually know it was just him, a 1 hour ceremony. I didn't know how it was structured or
Wow.
anything. So, and I write about this story in the book. And one of my biggest learnings, and really where I started understanding the family dynamic and understanding race and understanding justice was really around that day in 1998 when he was going to get his fourth star. And the John McCain was actually the senator that got the bill or got the resolution passed. It was part of the Defense Act that Ben Davis would get his fourth star. And if I remember right, it was his first or second person that's ever had a fourth star after retirement.
Wow.
But the way that it was written said that we were not going to get compensated.
Wow.
So here we are the night before the event, and Ben and his wife are going at it because she cannot believe that after all that we did,
And all this time, yeah, man.
that the United
Yeah.
States of America would say, you are recognized for getting the fourth star, but the only way you'll get it is if you sign this piece of paper that says you will receive no financial compensation in the past or forward.
Wow.
So Ben and his wife, and she told him, do not take it. We should get paid. If you're going to acknowledge that you did us wrong, then we should get paid. And Ben said, I promised my dad I would be one of the greatest generals in American history. And tomorrow I am going to receive, I'm going to do it. And he kept saying, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? Because Ben really wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
You fought all those years in the military and didn't get the fourth star, and now you're getting it. You want the fourth star.
You want the fourth star. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was when I saw this man was incredible. That was the moment where I said, this is amazing. And then when he passed away and 4th of July in 2002, and the whole loop around Arlington was closed as we drove his casket to Arlington National Cemetery.
July 4th, 2002, he dies on
the 4th of July. In Walter Reed Medical Center in the Eisenhower room, where they wheel 4-star generals and presidents, and it overlooks a grassy outdoor kind of garden area.
You can't make this
up.
He
dies on the 4th of July, and his final request was a black tombstone in Arlington, and as a symbolic gesture. And when you go to Arlington, it's all white tombstones, and there's a few black ones, but in the distance you see one black tombstone, and it's on a hill right next to his dad.
Wow.
And you just can't believe, you can't
make this up. You can't make it up.
Make this up. So when this happened and the New York Times wrote about him, then I started getting a little bit more curious, but I was younger and just out of college and everything. Yeah. So when the Red Tails hit 10 years later, that's when it clicked in for me. And that's when I said, I'm going to make it my job to get this story to the world through writing it.
Did you enjoy it, Doug?
Oh, I enjoyed every bit of it. And the good thing is I got to travel. I live in Geneva, Switzerland. So
I did not know that. Okay, wow.
I was writing this baby in the Alps. I was writing it in Amsterdam in the canals. I was traveling to the places where Ben went, to Italy, to North Africa, to Greece. I was really out there.
You traveled. I mean, you took the steps.
Man. Yeah, I really did this 100% immersion.
Okay, I got to find out why you are in Geneva, Switzerland. Man, that is, what has you there, man? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my job relocated me to Switzerland 2 years ago, so I've been out there. I come back to the States quite often, but it was a place to write the book in peace.
Yeah.
If you're a first-time author, it has really good air. has really good Avion water in the faucet.
Yeah, it's not bad, man. It's not bad at all,
Yeah,
man.
you can really think.
It's interesting. Last question, man. I know we're short on time.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
when you hit send on this, when it was ready to go, man,
Mm-hmm.
did you feel like you said everything that you wanted to say?
I think like they told me from the beginning, the editor is the most important part of the
Yes,
book.
man.
I'm
Yes,
telling you the truth.
yes.
Because the story starts at Ulysses S. Grant's presidential inauguration, and it ends with the West Point barracks and the Air Force Academy renaming their campus structures after him. You're talking about a 150-year story. So what we really tried to do is say the right things, because there was way more than enough information in the archives. But I think the editor and making sure it was digestible was really my mission. So I think many things were said in a way that tells a good story, but there could have
Mm-hmm.
been.
I do got a last one here, man. How did this change you personally, man?
Well, first of all, it's my first book, so I mean, I think for any
Yeah.
first-time author, that's a real
Good
and just
job, by the way.
thank you. So
Yeah.
for me personally, and then just being a diversity officer now as a career and knowing how much diversity is necessary for storytelling, to bring out different stories, to build different lenses and different angles of the prism. I think it's really important. How it changed me personally is open my eyes up to the opportunity around diverse stories and storytelling, the
Yeah.
importance of that to children, and also the importance of that just to inspire America. We just need new positive narratives. Not everything's negative. These two men believe they live the American dream. They didn't say, oh, look what I didn't get. This is horrible. This isn't fair. They said, listen, we want our American dream. And that is a father and a son
Yeah.
who work for the country, gave their life in service of the nation, and died honorably doing that job. They never complained,
Yeah.
never said, oh, this and that, or I'm not going to do this, or this sucks. When Ben Jr. didn't get his fourth star, he got a job working in the Pentagon. They put him in the last office in the corner, didn't have any idea what they were going to do with him. And in that office, he goes, I think there's two things I should do right away: make the skies safer. Number one, he created the TSA. He led the creation of the United States Air Marshal Program. Okay, so right there, he was so successful doing that under Nixon. Under Carter, he gets moved to the work with the Transportation Association, and he leads the creation of the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So even after everything was said and done, and all these things were done, they used to call them indignities. All these indignities were done to them. Still to 11:59, 1 minute before midnight, these men are working to improve the safety of all Americans. I mean, it's really something that, I don't really know what else could be said about it. Even how he raised my dad. He doesn't have to do that
Yeah.
in theory. And one last thing, Ben Davis Sr.'s wife died in childbirth. He was a single
I saw that, man,
dad,
with three kids, man.
a single dad
Yeah. I mean, with three kids.
with three kids in
When I
the
read
early
that,
1900s.
when I read that in my journal here, I said, I don't know if I would. I mean, look at all how much he overcame, man. I would say both overcame. And you just go, that is unreal. And then, I mean, he there'd be no TSA without him, man. That
No,
is
it's unbelievable. It's
it's
unbelievable. There's
unbelievable.
pictures of it in the book of him going through airport security the first time. And you just sit here and go, what? This was all created by the guy who commanded the Tuskegee Airmen?
It's all him. So when you go through the
I mean, because I
airport,
say it like a fan. I'm telling
yeah.
it to you like a fan because I'm just
So when you go through the airport, do you just go, Yeah, my grandfather created
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I look at everything. I always go, there's no passenger 57 without Benjamin O. Davis.
There's not, man. And he's an incredible man. I'm so excited about telling this story.
Thank you
Book
so much. I
comes
appreciate the
out
support
next
and
month.
spreading the word. And I'm so glad we could, let it out around Veterans Day. And we're getting so many people reaching out about Black History Month and Martin Luther King Day. So, I think my goal with it is to build awareness, encourage people to talk to the people in their living room. If it wasn't for this movie, because sometimes people go, "Oh, are you mad at George Lucas and this and that?" And I go, "No, George Lucas brought the story to life, but there's more pieces to the puzzle. Someone
There'd
has to
be
bring it to
no
life.
book without the error in the movie, man. That's
There's
how
no
I see
book
it.
without the names."
And if I could tell your grandfather one thing, it would be, could he have done it like 85 miles per hour first instead of 55? I'm joking.
Well, if you read in actually his book, he talks about how he had to leave because so many people were mad it was so slow, but it was the optimal speed for gasoline
It's
consumption.
the best speed period, man, because we do not need to go any faster in some of these streets. So I'm
Oh, you're
kidding,
right. You're
literally
right.
kidding on that one. Thank you, Doug, for your time, man. I wish you well on this.
Thank you. And I
It's a good
appreciate your
read,
support. And
man.
thank you for taking the time too.
You got it, man. Thank you
Keep
so much.
spreading the word. Thank
All
you.
right, man. Have a good one.